mostly student liberal political activist groups on the left organize Stop Trump protests. These groups are anarchists, stopping traffic, disrupting free speech as if only theirs is right. The uninformed interviews that follow demonstrate the inadequacies of some of the protesters as representatives of the universities for which they are attacking presidential candidates has been a First Amendment block. It's anarchist-like. It's defined no other way. The political left has always been the leader in protesting anything. Black Lives, Wall Street Matters groups, an embarrassment to the rest of us Americans, sometimes yes, sometimes no. The protesters don't realize that the rebellion they are stomping on is a free speech issue, a denial of the very right they are attempting to stifle. This is the very reason why Sanders and Trump must continue to have the right to do the same thing, express their views, and to be heard. And I have with me to talk about this subject on the phone in a remote location, Ariel Davies, a liberal student from Rutgers University. I believe you're a freshman, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then JP Andrede, Juan Pablo Andrede, who's a millennial conservative consultant. Based on what I had just said, I realize that might sound a little harsh, but I'll start with you, JP. That's my reflection on what the protesters are doing is stifling the First Amendment, even though they're trying to stop Trump from continuing his argument. Now, I don't know how to define that any other way. How would you respond to it?
Well, it seems like this election's been a lot different than any other federal election that's been around, at least protesters-wise. Protesters have their ultimate goal has always been to obviously to express their feelings and to get a little more media attention throughout to the event and any media sources that are at the event. It seems like the protesters in this election, specifically against both Clinton, Sanders, and Donald Trump, it seems like their ultimate goal now is not only to get out on the media and to have their message heard, but is to completely end their their presidential campaign would be their most favorite goal, but to completely end and to, I guess the best word I would say is destroy their event, to make sure their event is ended.
Well, so far they've been relatively successful. Would you agree, Ariel, that the protesters have been basically fairly successful in stopping the candidates from going forward, especially in Trump's case?
Well, I think that, the protesters are going out of control in some aspects, but I think that doesn't reflect the whole picture. And I think that Trump is doing a lot to enable this type of reaction. But I think most Bernie Sanders supporters and most people who you would categorize as doing these disruptive acts, most of these people would not be doing these acts. Most of these people do not support this type of conduct. But I'm sure there are a few who are engaging in this act. And I don't think that there's anything wrong to peacefully protest outside. But, I think there is something wrong if you're protesting inside. But even if you're protesting inside, I don't think that gives any right for you to fear for your life or for you to be attacked by someone inside.
I personally buy into what you said in the beginning. Would you agree, JP? I mean, as far as protesting outside, that seemed like that's probably where the protest should have stayed. Well, but he would agree with us, I'm sure, that protesting on the inside is stopping free speech. Right, Ariel? I got that right?
Yeah, but to a certain extent. I think if you're peacefully protesting inside, I don't fully support it. But at the same time, you're still exercising your freedom of speech, but I could see how it infringes on the group who is using that space. So I could understand that point, yeah. I would prefer if the protests were going on outside.
No, yeah, I agree as well. I'm sure it's safe to say that all political activists / operatives, both on the Republican, Democratic, conservative, liberal side, have been a part of a event where a protest has been involved in, and as well as being a protester. And obviously, I agree with both of you that a protest should be, especially if it's going to be a protest that they want to get their voice out, should be on the outside of an event, not protesters sneaking into an event where people are just trying to, support their candidate and, disrupting the event while disrupting the speaker. I believe it's safe to say that protests should belong outside of the where the said event is.
Yeah, You know what? My only problem now is with the street protest. I don't know if you saw that the protesters went out in the Arizona primary.
Yes, I
and
saw
they
that.
blocked the traffic with three. There were a lot of people that were heading towards that event, but there were also people that could have been pregnant on their way to the hospital. There could have been people running to see their grandmother who was in trouble. That could have been a lot of other things. I think I drew the line right there. I said, wait a minute, that's the anarchy that I see coming from the left. And that's what my argument was, Ariel, that I think I had to draw the line there. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I think that there should, I think that there's a side of this that is not being paid attention to, and that's that Trump, in a way, is encouraging a lot of this type of actions and rhetoric. Like, literally, you could watch the video of one of the protesters who was being walked out, okay? And this man got up and he just punched him in the face. I mean, that is not in any way acceptable, but yet Donald Trump comes out and says he's open to looking into paying the legal fees for this guy, which only encourages further types of actions like this. And that's not what someone who wants to be the president of the United States should be doing.
Okay, hold on. Go ahead.
I agree as well. Like I said before, this specific election, the 2016 presidential election and other congressional elections this year, it's different than any other presidential election, 2012 and 2008. Donald Trump himself is bringing out different types of voters, both young and older voters. I agree with him that,
With Ariel?
With Ariel. I agree with him that there shouldn't be any type of confrontation in situations like that where a protester is exiting an event and someone a supporter of Trump just punches him in the face. I don't think that should be accepted as well.
Right, but did you see what happened right before that? When somebody is a supporter of what they believe in, and let's say that protester, because I don't know where his head was at when he did that, but I can.
That was in South Carolina, I think.
Yeah, no, I meant what made him come to the point where somebody sticking his finger up in the air with the flag and degrading the flag and sticking his middle finger up in the air at a supporter, knowing that protester is against that person. That would make me mad too. I mean, standing there feeling what that guy's pain was like, I don't know if I wouldn't punch that guy out too. Now,
first I watched the video, it didn't seem like he was doing that. There may be other videos out there, but from the video that I saw that was widely shared, it did not look like he was doing that. It looked like he was being escorted, but maybe he was doing that earlier. But regardless, I don't think in any way that excuses violence. Never should violence be the answer. And it's very hard to support any candidate who would accept violence as an answer. Because regardless, if you disagree with someone, you should never have to resort to violence. And that's what
I know. I think what JP was saying before, Ariel, is that this is a different election, and driving our emotions to different levels that I think I've never seen before. I
agree.
I don't ever call this.
I agree that I think this is definitely a more radical election than in previous years on the right and on the left, with different ideologies and different beliefs coming more to the forefront. But regardless, I still think, regardless if you're a Democrat or a Republican, we're all Americans, and I don't think that we should be beating each other up.
Well,
bottom line, we should be able to discuss this civilly, just like the founding fathers did.
That unfortunately, that guy you were referring to, the one I was referring to first, was about him sticking his middle finger up and draping the flag around his body. He did that right exactly before the punch. I mean, it was almost exactly the same time. Unless there was another event that I didn't see. I don't know, I didn't remember. But to me, like I said, we just degrade the flag. I mean, I'm a military man. I really have a lot of respect for the American flag. Anybody burning the flag or stepping on the flag, I have immediate distaste for. And if I'm at a rally, I can actually see the energies drive up like in a basketball game. You get your mojo up, so to speak. You get mentally driven into a point where your ideas come to the power of your thoughts, and sometimes can be taken away.
Well, now that you bring up that point as well, I agree with you completely on that as well. If it was a regular protester just protesting regularly and they just get escorted out and somebody just punches him out of nowhere, I don't agree with that.
Right.
But if someone's defiling and showing hatred towards our flag, our country's flag,
Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that particular issue. I'd like to go on. However, you're right. I believe, and do you see what we meant by that, Ariel? That I think he was defiling the flag. I don't know, is that the right word? Defiling?
That's what I would use.
Yeah. Well,
But
certainly.
even I understand what you're saying, but I completely disagree. I think, you know, if I saw someone who was doing something that I completely disagreed with, you know, that's for them to do. There's no acceptable reason that I should be able to use force just because I believe that. And I could understand someone being angry if someone is doing, you know, stepping on the flag or something like that. But again, we live in a society with laws. We do not just go and punch someone in the face that we disagree with. And we can't just blame it on, you know, hyper emotions, because, I mean, if you do that, you're going to go to jail for it. So you can't plead, you know, you were in an emotional state.
All right. Let's say that one of my feelings about what happens to the political left and political right, they're polarized to such an extent right now that, and I just did a program about this a minute ago, the people here that are in this mini audience we have here in the studio would agree that I had said that. It doesn't appear to me that the left and right could possibly be further apart from solution-oriented business and politics. Is that a good way to put it?
No, I think so.
Yeah. I don't see, if I don't see a solution, and I try to be even-handed about this as a mediator, I always try to think about, well, what does the other side have to say about that? I can't envision it. I can be politically oriented on one side, but just because I don't see the political orientation on the other side, and if I can never talk to the other side, which is how it appears to me, Ariel, I don't like that idea. I wish there was some other way to bridge this gap. But the guest we had on before was a politician. He says it takes leadership to do that, and I'm not going to say that I'm doubtful, but I don't know what to expect about the progress there.
You know, I agree with you on that as well. Unfortunately, a lot of our Republicans on a national level, especially the Republicans in the leadership of the House and the Senate, wouldn't even think about considering to voting for a Democratic bill, a bill that a Democrat sponsored, or especially a Democratic leader.
Right.
As you know, I ran for office in 2015 briefly, challenging legislator Lou DeMauro. What I wanted to do, in the Suffolk County Legislature, the Republicans vote for the Republicans, the Democrats vote for the Democrats. What I wanted to do is to make sure to bridge that gap between the Republicans and the Democrats.
Tough
make
job.
sure that, oh yeah, extremely tough on every level of government, whether it's local, state, or federal. It's an extremely tough job, but you know, it needs to be done. The gap needs to be bridged between the Republicans and the Democrats.
Do you have any suggestions, Ariel? Because we don't.
Yeah, well, I think on both sides you see discontent with the establishment and with the lack of actually getting things done, and also with regards to super PACs and special interests in government and how it affects laws. That's why you see Donald Trump say that, you know, he knows about that and he doesn't take money from special interests just like all the other candidates, which is one attribute that I can admire about him. So too, Bernie Sanders doesn't have any money from special interests or super PACs. And those are two key things. Those two candidates both use that as a selling point for their candidacy. So I think that, you know, that signifies that is a major issue to Americans, and corruption in government is a major issue.
Yeah, it's primary. Thank you. Good point. And that's a primary issue for both of us. There's no question about it. Anybody who stands on either political party. As a matter of fact, if I can just say that your mom had a lot to say with it when she wrote that book, but that was her main issue, is that campaign financing and campaign monies that come into the parties are a real problem for both parties to deal with, because once you become, that's what Trump had said recently, once you become beholden to that, you don't have your own mind anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And that's right?
Yeah, and it's completely on both sides. And, you know, a lot of the people who give a lot of money to Hillary Clinton is the same people who give a lot of money to Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, you know, special interests like banks. All these things contribute to these candidates, and they don't really look at it as Republican and Democrat. They just look at it as people to use for their own political agendas.
Let's head a little bit more closer to the schools. The the universities are predominantly left-running principals, not principals. I'm sorry, professors. Most of it's the facts. What are the facts? 75% or 70% are liberal Democrat or vote registered Democrats. I think it is.
I believe closer to 70.
Yeah, it's a high number, and the conservatives are only a very not even the full amount. It's like 15%. So there's another 15% in there that are independent. So the university instructors are delivering messages from the political left, make the majority of students that come out to these protests, and the majority of these protests don't seem to be well educated. And I'm talking about the protesters, and they don't know a lot about how politics are going. They're just there to protest. I found that strange because I saw some of the interviews of the protesters. Why are you here? What are you protesting? Nobody really has a good answer. And I think that the organization of the protesters is far better on the left than it is on the right. Mm-hmm. It's far more prolific. But if you're generating your students in the universities with politically left information on a regular basis, you're going to drive that student into that realm. It's because it's going to be there for you. And there's a lot of revisionist historians, I don't know if you've seen this, writing books with the left-leaning slant. So as a conservative, I'm concerned about that, very concerned about that. And I think that we made a wrong turn somewhere, and this is what we have, and we're 19th out of the leading 20 industrial countries in education. I'm going to say we've done something wrong. I don't know what it is we've done something wrong, but certainly it would be a lot better if we had a better balance in the universities. Have you heard these things, Ariel?
From my experience, most of my classes they don't mention their own personal political beliefs. I do not know any of my professors' political beliefs, but they teach me a certain curriculum, and I don't know if it's really that fair to say it's so left-wing or revisionist or these other things. I think that they're giving a perspective that I wouldn't be able to receive if it was, strictly one way or the other. I have so many opportunities for so many different classes and so many different outlooks that I think that this is a great opportunity. And, I'm 19 years old. I still have a lot of growing to do. And all of these classes give me a real insight into things that I never learned growing up. I never learned through the media. I never learned through a lot of the regular channels that you are supposed to learn a lot of information from.
Yeah, I was just referring to my concern that this I don't know how to put this. It's almost like brainwashing was many years ago in the thought about.
I don't think it is brainwashing. I think it's showing you different opinions and different approaches, and I don't think there is anything wrong with that.
No.
I think that it's very far from brainwashing because it's almost the exact opposite, because it's literally showing you everything that is available, all the options, and then you choose by yourself. You choose based off actual information, actual facts. It's not just, you're sitting in the classroom when the teacher tells you this is fact. You could look it up, you could question the teacher. There's nothing that's taking away from that.
I'm just looking at the numbers. I'm not actually sitting in the classroom anymore, but it does seem that the majority of college students that come that are seniors and graduate are on the political left.
But why does that mean that it's because of political indoctrination or brainwashing? Why can't it be that maybe they're on the left because they received a higher education and then they came to that reasonable conclusion? Why does it have to be that they were brainwashed to believe that?
Evidence. I've seen some of the evidence in the classes themselves. I've seen some of the reports and some of the teachers that were on film, were filmed saying certain things about the past presidents. I've seen it. There's plenty.
I'm sure that some teachers act that way, but that is not how you're supposed to conduct yourself as a professor. And never have I or any of my friends experienced anything like that on college campus.
Yeah, because I didn't experience it myself. I don't know, because I grew up in a different period of time. But I have seen the evidence on film. So we should be concerned about that. We should both parties or both people of different political persuasions need to be concerned about the influence that comes out of our universities, because it looks like it's dominated just on an appearance level. And I've seen some of the footage. I don't know if you've seen it, JP.
The footage
of the teachers saying things that were
I've seen
derogatory to different political
I've seen
candidates.
a handful. I've met a lot of students, a lot of former students that have said that teachers have been, I guess, leaning towards one side or the other.
Even stating things obviously about, I remember the Bush things that they saw. You know, everybody had a reason to dump on Bush for some reason.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because a student, his name is Justin Carrizales, he's a student from Omaha, Nebraska. He recently got a little bit of a, he was out on the media a little bit, on different media sources because one of his liberal teachers in a class of about 350, a lecture class.
Wow.
The teacher, outspoken, started speaking completely against Donald Trump and telling the students to vote for Hillary Clinton. So Justin Carrizales went against that, started filing different types of petitions, arguing against the teacher. I believe they tried to threaten to kick him out of school because of that.
Actually, I did remember hearing about that. That's recent. I don't know if you heard about it, JP, but that's the kind of thing we're talking about because there's actually influencing their own grade when they step out. I mean, what teacher is now going to give this person who's protesting them in the classroom about, speaking badly about a candidate they might like, and now they got to worry about whether they're going to pass or fail or, get a lower grade. And some of this has gone on. That's some of the evidence I was referring to. It actually has happened. And it doesn't happen the other way. Go ahead, JP, I'm sorry. I mean, Ariel, sorry.
I'm sure there are instances of that occurring, but for the most part, I think that is not the reality on college campus. There's the Republican club, there's the Democrat club. Everyone has their own club, everyone has their own niche. Everyone could be who they want to be. And I think a lot of the teachers do not just come into class trying to indoctrinate the students. I think that maybe they have a certain set of beliefs on a certain issue and they want to teach it that way, but I do not believe that it's as simple as indoctrination because people are still able to decide. I just think calling it indoctrination or anything like that is too far.
There's a book by Kirsten Powers, who's a liberal, she's a commentator. Yeah. You know who she is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course I don't agree with her politically, but she wrote a book called The Silencing, and in The Silencing she points to many of the descriptions of how the conservative and Republican groups that have to meet in a very small cigarette batch type of half of a room where the liberals and Democrats can meet in an auditorium. And it's completely different how the universities are covering this. These are some of the things, if you read the book, you'll see what I mean. And this is going on throughout the campus. I would like the left to know that. I would like the political left to know how they're being indoctrinated. In some ways, in small ways, they're being discriminated. Actually, it's a major way.
Oh, yeah,
when you think about it. Because a lot of our political thought comes from the universities, from where, as you said before, Ariel, where the open mind begins. And, it's an important factor. I think we have about another minute or so left. Ariel, is there anything else you'd like to add to your feeling about the issue with the youth today in politics from your perspective at Rutgers?
Yeah. From my perspective at Rutgers is that I'm in a school with a lot of different people with a lot of different beliefs, and I come across them all the time, and we have different conversations. I have conversations with some people who are Trump supporters. I have some conversations with people who are Hillary supporters. I support Bernie. I go to my classes ranging from Western religions or Jewish society and culture or consumer media and culture, and I get a new idea and mindset from each class. And I'm not just learning in the class and then absorbing it as fact. I do my own research and I make sure everything is legitimate.
That's important.
But I think that there is a lot to be gained from higher education, and especially the higher education that we currently have. And I hope that if Bernie Sanders gets elected, that we all have free higher education so that we can all pursue our dreams and be as successful as we can in America.
That's a subject for, we have to bring you back on another subject of free education, because that's a day by itself and a show all by itself. Because we, who's going to pay for free? I mean, it's going to end up being taxpayer dollars.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, right. I mean, how are we going to do that? But
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ariel. Go ahead. Quick, you got another minute.
No, under Bernie Sanders' plan, it would be through a tax on Wall Street speculation. So that wouldn't be a tax on regular Americans. But regardless of that, I still think that higher education should be a right, because I think everyone should be entitled to be able to learn and to be able to get an education. Just like we're able to get free high school, we should get free college and beyond.
Doesn't it seem like it's segregatory or segregating, or I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. But the Wall Street people, wouldn't they be upset about them being targeted as the only person paying for the school for everybody? I mean,
I think Americans should be upset about how Wall Street took advantage of our economy and system when it collapsed, and yet they get bailed out, but the Americans, for the most part, do not receive that same level of assistance. And
good.
maybe they won't be that happy, but the tax isn't that high, and it'll be quite successful because
We'll see about
millions
that.
upon millions of dollars go through
All right,
that system.
Ariel, we have to wrap it up. JP, a final comment about what he was saying, and we'll wrap it up.
Now that you brought up talking about free stuff, that's the thing with most of the Democratic candidates, especially the Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and other congressional candidates. All these Democrats and liberals are talking about free stuff, free stuff, free stuff. We just reached $19 trillion in debt. Where are we going to get all this money? We're going to go into a worse recession. We're going to be in one of the worst economic situations that we have ever been in if a Democrat gets elected into office. That's the reason the youth, most of the youth, are leaning more towards Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, is because they're offering free stuff.
And they
More
also
free
don't
stuff
see
and
the
free stuff.
opportunity of making money, and what's missing in the education is learning how to compete, which is a traditionally conservative methodology. You compete for business, compete for your interests. It's a different psyche. If you don't mind, we have to wrap this show up, Ariel. I'm sorry, I can't go further on this, but you know what?
Okay.
May I bring you both back on a show that's on that topic alone? We can have a lot of fun with that, okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks very much, JP and Ariel Davies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.